you very much indeed. I'm going to start with the last one first. Am I going to be making any controversial statements in the near future that will be great for your newspaper sales, Pamela? No, I'm not. Sorry. But as I touched on in my speech, I think there are times when you need to say things in public, and there are times when it's more effective to say things in private. And I and the other sort of key members of the diplomatic community who are supporters of media freedom and democracy and fair and open societies will be constantly making that calculation. At what point should we say something in private, which will be our default preference, because frankly I think you get more done that way. And then what are those circumstances where you do have to say something in public? So I'm not going to guarantee controversial press, but I can guarantee that we will be supporting media freedom, democracy and open society in all its ways, including on our messaging. In terms of business models and community stations, I agree these are incredibly important. Some of that is worked into our Protect programme and will be as it develops. And Nikolai and yourself might want to discuss that over lunch after this. In terms of Eric supporting the 4 pillars that media stakeholders have identified, they actually largely match to the pillars of the Protect programme. So I'm hopeful that we will have mutual interest in working together there and supporting you. And that's again where I think that conversation will be very useful. And you and Nikolai as well, I think we'll want to discuss that further in the margins after this. In terms of overall the UK's monitoring closely some of the attempts to perhaps constrain a little bit the operating space, and one key message that I've heard from pretty much all Kenyans I've spoken to is the importance and centrality of the 2010 Constitution and respecting that Constitution. And that's very much in our mind as we observe what is happening and have private meetings with some of the decision makers. Last but not least, the question on the chat around my biggest sort of challenge or decision as High Commissioner. And I'm torn between thinking I don't have one versus it feels like that every single day. But I think probably the biggest ones are actually not that unusual. It's ones that impacted all of us, which is COVID. And in our particular case, how did we change our operating model as a High Commissioner? I mean, diplomacy, right, it's all about people. It's all about meeting people, it's about having those side conversations, it's about having meetings. And what COVID did to us, like to all of you, is say that model is no longer possible. I had a meeting earlier today with the Chair of the National Assembly's Foreign and Defence Committee, and we commented that if this was pre-COVID, we would have met 10 times already at some sort of diplomatic function, which isn't just about cocktails and canopies, it's actually about getting an awful lot of that. There's a bit of that as well. But it is also about getting a lot of work done in the margins. So, at an average national day that an embassy hosts, for example, you can have 10 5-minute meetings and get through an awful lot of business and see an awful lot of people. And now with COVID, you can't do that, so you have to formally book in an hour slot in somebody's diary. You then sit at opposite sides of the room, you've got your mask on, so you probably don't recognise them if you run into them in the street or the supermarket 2 days later, and they don't recognise you. So I think the biggest challenges have been around that. How do we do business? How do we re-gear our business model, our operating model? But I know that's not just unique to our High Commission, that's much broader, including in the media sector, because after all, you're relying on going out on the ground and interviewing people and getting information, and a lot of that you can only do when it's face-to-face. So COVID is going to be with us for some time to come, and so finding these new ways of working is great. But I really hope that if I do come back to be with you again, I really hope we're able to do that fully in person and not to 100 of you down the line on a virtual call. Thank you.